Tomorrow night, the Virtuosi Concert Series will welcome the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra's Associate Concertmaster Karl Stobbe to their stage. Karl will be joined by the outstanding pianist Andrew Armstrong in music of Brahms, Nielsen, Mozart, and Sibelius in a concert that they're calling Nordic Gods. Joining me here in the Classic 107 studios to talk about tomorrow night's concert is Karl Stobbe. Welcome to our new Classic 107 studios.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here.
So this has been an extremely busy week for you, right? With New Music Festival and this concert coming up tomorrow. How does it feel to have another New Music Festival almost under your belt?
Well, considering it's a pretty big play tonight, the concert's busy for me. So at the moment it feels intimidating, but rehearsals have gone well. Everything's under control. So optimistic things are going to go well, and it's a really fun concert. We're playing. We end the concert with a great work of Michael Dougherty. It's called
the Metropolis.
With the Metropolis Symphony, yeah, and I would say it's got all the bells and whistles. It's so colorful.
Oh, great!
It's full of colors. It's full of, and I start the first movement is for a solo violin, amplified solo violin. So I've got a big play in that. But and the first half is a little more serene. So you get two different worlds tonight. But I think it's a really fun concert, a really great way to end New Music Festival.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm going tonight. So
good.
Yeah, as soon as I get out of here, I'm off to the concert hall.
Oh, cool.
I'm looking
good.
forward to it.
Good.
So how many New Music Festivals has it been for you?
I was just thinking about it. I think it's 24. So I think next year is 25.
And how old were you when you started working for the WSO?
I think I would have been 23, my first festival, something like that.
Wow.
I don't want to. I try not to think about it anymore. I used to be quite proud of being very young, and now, of course, I'm one of the older, or at least one of the more senior guys around. So,
veteran, yeah.
So yeah, that's become more disconcerting as time goes by.
Oh, wow. One of the other things I find so fascinating about you is that you're into all things violin, obviously, but one of the things you're really interested in is violin making and how that whole process. How did you get into that?
Well, I was a student in Indiana University, and Indiana has a very big music program, and so I was doing a master's there, and I had to declare a minor, and I was looking at history or theory, and neither of those were particularly appealing to me. I'm a much more hands-on kind of busy, buildy guy. I'm not particularly a cerebral person in any sense. So they had a program there. I was looking through the books they had there, and they have a program called Violin Maintenance and Building. Huh. And so I said, "Oh, that's what I'm doing." Uh-huh. And so I spent a lot of time in the violin shop they have there. In my second year of being in Indiana, I ended up building 4 violins. There was a certain point in my violin building career, if we can call it that, where I realized either I was going to be a good violin maker or a good violin player.
Right.
And not both. It was too much to do both. They're time consuming. And I realized I really can't live without playing the violin. I can live without making them, but
it's such a detailed process.
I
mean, occasionally I'll flip through the Strad magazine, and it's, you read these articles, and they're just, millimeters make all the difference in the world. It's a real art.
It is. And there's so much to know about it. I mean, you've got the woodworking for one thing, which is complex. There's, 200 and some pieces to glue together. Right. And of course, then first of all, you've got to make all the pieces and shape all the pieces. And then you've got varnishing, which is a totally different ball of wax. And then you've got all the finishing stuff that you've got to put in. I mean, really, it's 3 very different processes going on in kind of making a violin and how to do it.
So you must be also interested in trying out violins that people have made.
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going with this is, have you tried a newly made instrument that you've particularly liked?
I've tried lots. I've played lots of brand new violins. And I'm really close friends with Garth Lee, a violin maker in town, and I love his work. I think probably every violin he's made in the last 6, 7, 8 years, I've been the first one to play because I go over there, and as soon as it's done, I'm over there like a dirty shirt. I just cannot keep myself away from new instruments. Oh, I mean, all instruments.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love fiddles. I love playing them. I love being the first one. I love being the last one. I love the difference between an instrument that's 400 years old and an instrument that's 4 minutes old. So
Yeah, every time I think of that, I always think of, you've probably seen it, there's that great video on YouTube that the Emerson Quartet put out about when they recorded the Mendelssohn Octet, where they did one of the quartets on their Strads and Guarneris, and then the other quartet of instruments on like modern instruments. And I can't remember who it was, Drucker or something, standing there in studio going, I can't tell which one is which.
That's good.
It's fun. Just
mark of a good player too.
Yeah, fascinating thing. Tomorrow night's concert, you're going to be joined by the pianist Andrew Armstrong. Andrew has recorded most notably with James Ennis, who I believe you know and are friends with.
Yep.
How did you meet Andrew?
Well, through James, actually. Andrew would come through Winnipeg once or twice a year when James came through, and because they were always playing together, still are always playing together. And I would hang out with James because we go back to my very beginnings of my time here in Winnipeg.
Right.
And so we hung out, but funny enough, we didn't actually play anything together until about 3 years ago. And Andy has a summer camp in Wisconsin that he runs, and he phoned me up one day and he said, "Carl, you want to come out for a couple of weeks and we'll play some concerts and do some teaching?" And that was the beginning of our professional relationship together.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun, really fun.
What is it about playing with him that you particularly enjoy?
Well, first of all, he's a great pianist.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It goes without saying. I mean, anybody who's playing with everybody like he is, and he plays with really all the great players in the world. He plays a lot of stuff with violin because of James, but he plays with singers, cellists, everybody, and he's got a good solo career going. Plays concertos.
Yeah, I was reading.
He's a versatile guy, so he plays really well, and that of course is predominantly what I love about him. That said, Andy. And Andy apologized for not being here. He was actually going to be here, and he got caught somewhere else. He had to take care of a few things, and he's actually at the U of M giving a class. And anyway, but he's very funny, and rehearsing with him is half playing and half laughing and thinking, Andy, stop talking now. We got to get through this. I mean, stop making jokes, really. But he's a very funny guy, very affable, so easy to get along with and be with, and
great.
that's part of why he's done so well.
Well, yeah, of course,
because he's so easy to be with.
Yeah, I want to talk about tomorrow night's rep. The concert's called Nordic Gods, and I am any regular listener of Classic 107 will know that I program a lot of Scandinavian composers. I love Scandinavian music. Right. Why did you choose the Nielsen and the Sibelius? What about those two pieces, like the Sibelius 5 pieces and the Nielsen Second Sonata? What is it about them that you like?
First of all, let me say that I didn't come up with the title for it. Andy and I are not pretending to be the Nordic gods.
Okay.
It is about, I mean, the way that it looked when we first saw the advertising, it's Carl Stobbe and Andrew Armstrong, Nordic gods. I was like, oh, goodness. Back to your question, though, I have been a Nielsen fan for a very long time, as long as I can remember, really. As a teenager, I got into his music. His violin concerto is astonishingly great.
Yeah.
And Nielsen has not played a lot in North America. He has played a great deal more in Europe. But for somehow in North America, we have gravitated more to Sibelius as our sort of Nordic or Scandinavian representative. Nielsen is, they're in fact, they were born exactly the same year. So Sibelius and Nielsen are the same age.
Right.
Nielsen can be a little bit more abstract, I think, than Sibelius, but not necessarily always. I think Nielsen, being from Denmark, he actually is a little more German. He has a little more German influence.
But with a sense of humor too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
They're like he had a great sense of humor, and it
Absolutely.
comes across in his music totally.
Absolutely. And the piece, the second sonata, neither Andy or I have played it before.
Okay.
And in fact, neither of us knew it. But we sort of thought we were going to arrange this concert. We said, well, let's look for something that is, neither of us have done, so we can kind of learn it together.
Right.
And so we heard this piece, and we both fell in love with it because it's this sort of little fairy tale thing. It's very childlike.
Yeah.
It can be thick and dense at sometimes. It can be explosive sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like kids playing in a playground can all of a sudden have explosions of energy.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, it's this little fairy tale going on, and and it seems like very simple music, and then all of a sudden there's this like a dark, humorous thing that comes in. It's almost like the Brothers Grimm sort of fairy tales, right? It's not completely always happy and.
Yeah, I listened to it earlier this week, and one of the things that struck me about the sonata is there's this constant switcheroo between these sort of pastoral sections and these really like aggressive, explosive, as you were saying, sections. It's a fascinating sonata.
Yeah, and we both fell in love with it. We think the audience is going to love it too. It has a very unique sound world, and I think an approachable one. I don't think people should be afraid of this piece. In the same way, like Janáček is his very own world, but it's a world that's not. It's not so abstract that you can't follow it. It really, you can follow it quite easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm a fan of Nielsen as well.
Yeah.
Flag waving, hands down. He's
a great composer. So we're really happy to kind of bring this. I was wondering today actually if it's a Winnipeg premiere, probably, maybe even. Well, I'm sure it's not a Canadian one, but I doubt it's been played in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and like you were saying, his symphonies are rarely programmed, and it's too bad because all 6 of them are amazing.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
The symphony plays them once every 5 or 6 years. We get to play Nielsen Symphony. I look forward to them immensely.
Mm-hmm.
Sibelius, they're so cute. Yeah. I mean,
you're talking about the 5 pieces.
The 5 pieces that we're playing. Yeah, this Opus 81 pieces. They are charming. When you think of Sibelius, you think of the violin concerto and the symphonies, which can be almost stark sometimes. They have. I always think Sibelius is sort of a Canadian composer, and he writes for a very cold climate sometimes and sparse.
Yeah.
And these are warm and joyful and sentimental. I think they're so wonderful. So you get to the end of one, you think, oh. It's just, my heart is melting. It's so beautiful.
I was reading about them. They were written during most of them were written during the First World War, too. And one of the arguments of the article that I was reading was that at the time, orchestras were suffering because, of course, a lot of the musicians were being sent.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, from an economic standpoint, it was Sibelius composed these miniatures, because it was easier to put on a concert of a solo violinist, for example, than perhaps a full symphony orchestra.
Right. I didn't actually know that, so thank you for telling me.
It's an interesting story. Okay, so the other 2 big sonatas on the program are the Brahms, D minor, third, and Mozart, right?
Right.
They're both late works.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking here in particular about them, Mozart 35. He wrote 36 sonatas.
Right. What
makes the 35th so interesting, and how does it contrast particularly with his early violin sonatas?
This is a really great work, and there is a part of me, and I don't say this detrimentally at all, that thinks that Mozart in his time, the violin sonata was sort of a simple vehicle, and so a lot of his earlier sonatas, I think, they're not written in the same way like his symphonies or his operas. They're not the sort of big, complex works. And I think that they didn't have the sort of big audiences. He wrote them for smaller venues. So, but I think when he got to this, especially this late one, he really made it a powerful, strong work. It's quite long, probably 25, 26 minutes. To me, it really could even be thought of as one of the Beethoven violin sonatas. It's a powerful piece and joyful the entire time. It's all joyful, and Mozart at his most elegant. And virtuosic, especially that last movement, really flies, and it's got a lot of notes in it. Yeah.
That's great. So the last piece, of course, is the Brahms third violin sonata. Does that sonata create any challenges? And I'm thinking here with balance, because whenever I think of Brahms, I think of the piano parts.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a big, thick.
Like he tends to write with all of his sonatas. I'm thinking the cello sonatas, the clarinet sonatas. Myself as a clarinetist, but the piano parts are always very thick and very dense. Does that create any challenges as a violinist?
Well, I guess for both of us, sure, it does. There are times I think that Andy has to back off a little bit and just make sure he's still putting in all of the energy and strength in it, but maybe not all of the volume that a piano is capable of.
Right. And
I have to make sure in my quietest moments that I'm not being so quiet that the piano can't play underneath it.
Right.
It's like playing. It's halfway to playing with an orchestra. When you play a concerto with an orchestra, then there's no such thing as the soft volumes.
Right.
You just have to play out because you're playing for very big houses, very big venues, and you're trying to play over 80 other players.
Yeah.
So does it present problems? Not any more than many other sonatas. Brahms is really clever, creative. He really knows how to handle both the piano and the violins. So I don't think it's particularly more troublesome than other sonatas. It is a big, bombastic kind of work.
Well,
right?
and the other thing is it's in 4 movements, right?
Yeah.
The other 2 sonatas are just in 3, right? So it's
Yeah, the 4 movements are probably a little shorter than the movements in the first 2 sonatas. I don't think it's a longer sonata overall, but it is a very different flavor one than the first. The first sonata is very elegant and graceful, and the second one is childlike and beautiful and warm. And this one is darker and rougher. It's really exciting. It's Brahms at his most driven, sort of think First Symphony or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Carl, it just sounds like it's going to be a fantastic concert tomorrow night.
We certainly have been looking forward to it for a long time. I think it's a really fun program, if I'm allowed to say that. I know Andy and I put it together, but I really like the program. I think people will really enjoy it.
It sounds great. Thanks so much for stopping by and talking to us today.
Oh, it's a great pleasure.
And good luck tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Join Carl Stobbe and Andrew Armstrong tomorrow at the University of Winnipeg's Eckhardt-Gramatté Hall. The concert starts at 7:30 and is sure to be just a fantastic concert. For more information on the concert tomorrow night, as put on by the Virtuosi Concert Series, you can go to classic107.com or just click on the events tab.